What happens when two of entertainment's biggest personalities clash live on television, and the conversation takes such a dramatic turn that one of them storms off set? This is exactly what unfolded when Jennifer Lopez appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show, in what started as a routine, promotional interview but quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. If you want to hear the full story of how a simple question about relationships turned into a television meltdown, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered this explosive confrontation. The atmosphere in the studio seemed normal at first. Ellen, with her trademark smile and casual demeanor, welcomed Jennifer Lopez to the show with the usual fanfare. The audience was excited. The cameras were rolling, and everything appeared to be going according to plan. Jennifer looked stunning, as always, dressed in a sleek black outfit that commanded attention, her hair perfectly styled and her makeup flawless. "Welcome back to the show, Jennifer," Ellen began, her voice carrying that familiar warmth that had made her a daytime television icon. "It's always such a pleasure to have you here. You look absolutely incredible." Jennifer smiled graciously, crossing her legs and settling into the guest chair. "Thank you, Ellen. It's good to be back. I always enjoy our conversations." But there was something different in Jennifer's tone, a slight edge that wasn't immediately apparent to the audience but would become increasingly obvious as the interview progressed. Ellen, seemingly oblivious to any tension, launched into her prepared questions with her usual enthusiasm. "So, let's talk about your latest project. You've been incredibly busy lately, and I know our audience is dying to hear about what you're working on," Ellen said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Jennifer's response was measured but professional. "Well, I'm always working on multiple things at once. Music, acting, business ventures. You know how it is in this industry. You have to keep moving or you get left behind." Ellen nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. And speaking of keeping busy, I have to ask about your personal life. Our viewers are always curious about how you balance everything, especially with relationships. You've been pretty private lately." The question seemed innocent enough, but Jennifer's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Her smile became slightly more forced, and she adjusted her posture in the chair. "I prefer to keep my personal life personal, Ellen. I think that's important for my sanity and for my family." Ellen, perhaps not picking up on the subtle warning signs, pressed forward. Of course. But you've been such an open book about love and relationships in the past. Your fans feel like they've been on this journey with you. Don't you think they deserve to know how you're doing?" Jennifer's jaw tightened slightly. "I think what my fans deserve is good music, good movies, and authentic performances. My personal relationships aren't entertainment for anyone." The tension in the studio was starting to become palpable. Ellen's producers behind the cameras were beginning to exchange worried glances, sensing that the interview was taking an unexpected turn. But Ellen, either unaware of the growing tension or choosing to ignore it, continued down the same path. "I understand that, Jennifer, I really do. But you have to admit, your love life has been pretty public over the years. The tabloids, the paparazzi, the social media speculation. Isn't it better to control the narrative yourself?" Jennifer's eyes flashed with something that looked like anger, though she maintained her composure. "Ellen, I think you're misunderstanding something here. Just because the tabloids and paparazzi have made my personal life their business doesn't mean I have to participate in that circus." The audience was beginning to sense the shift in energy. What had started as a light, entertaining interview was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. Ellen, perhaps realizing she had struck a nerve, attempted to lighten the mood. "Hey, I'm just saying, love is a beautiful thing, and when someone like you finds happiness, people want to celebrate that with you. There's nothing wrong with sharing joy." But Jennifer wasn't having it. Her voice took on a sharper edge. "There's a difference between sharing joy and having your most intimate moments dissected and analyzed by strangers. I've learned that lesson the hard way." Ellen leaned back slightly, clearly taken aback by the intensity of Jennifer's response. "I didn't mean to upset you. I'm just trying to have a conversation here." "A conversation?" Jennifer's voice rose slightly. "This feels more like an interrogation. I came here to talk about my work, my projects, my art, not to be grilled about my personal relationships like I'm some kind of reality TV star." The studio had gone remarkably quiet. Even the audience seemed to be holding their breath, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Ellen's usual quick wit seemed to have abandoned her as she struggled to regain control of the interview. "Jennifer, I think you're overreacting a bit. These are standard questions we ask all our guests. It's just friendly conversation." Those words would prove to be a critical mistake. Jennifer's eyes narrowed, and her entire demeanor shifted. "Overreacting? Friendly conversation. Ellen, let me tell you something about friendly conversation. It doesn't involve pushing someone when they've clearly stated their boundaries." The tension in the room was now undeniable. Ellen's producers were frantically trying to signal from behind the cameras, but it was too late. The interview had crossed a line from uncomfortable to confrontational, and there was no going back. Ellen attempted one last time to salvage the situation. Look, I think we're both getting a little heated here. Why don't we take a breath and talk about something else? Your new album, maybe. But Jennifer had reached her breaking point. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound that echoed through the silent studio. You know what, Ellen? I think we're done here. The sound of Jennifer's chair scraping against the floor seemed to echo through the entire studio, a harsh punctuation mark to what had already become an incredibly tense moment. Ellen's face went pale as she realized the gravity of the situation unfolding before her and millions of viewers. Jennifer, please, sit back down, Ellen said, her voice now carrying a note of desperation that was completely foreign to her usual confident demeanor. We can work this out. Let's just talk through this like adults. But Jennifer remained standing, her posture rigid with anger and frustration. Like adults? Ellen, I have been trying to have an adult conversation with you for the past 10 minutes, and you keep pushing and pushing. I told you I don't want to discuss my personal life, and you just won't let it go. The audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something that would likely make headlines within hours. Ellen's producers were making frantic gestures from behind the cameras, but both women seemed completely focused on each other, locked in a battle of wills that was playing out in real time. Ellen stood up as well, perhaps thinking that meeting Jennifer at eye level would help diffuse the situation. Look, I hear what you're saying, but this is how these interviews work. People want to know about the whole person, not just the celebrity. That's what makes good television. Jennifer's laugh was bitter and sharp. Good television. Is that what this is about? You're willing to make me uncomfortable, to violate my clearly stated boundaries, all for the sake of good television. That's not what I meant, Ellen protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm just trying to connect with you, to help our audience connect with you. People relate to love stories, to relationships, to the human experience. The human experience. Jennifer's voice rose again, and this time there was no mistaking the anger in her tone. Let me tell you about the human experience. Ellen, the human experience is having your every move scrutinized, your every relationship dissected, your every mistake broadcast to the world. The human experience is trying to protect the people you care about from that circus. Ellen seemed to realize she was losing control of the situation entirely. Jennifer, I think you're taking this too personally. I'm not trying to hurt you or expose you. I'm just doing my job, just doing your job. Jennifer's voice dripped with disdain. Your job is supposed to be entertaining people, making them laugh, making them feel good. How is this making anyone feel good? How is this entertaining? The studio audience was clearly uncomfortable now. Some were shifting in their seats, others were looking around nervously, and a few were even starting to whisper among themselves. This was not the feel-good daytime television they had come to expect. Ellen made another attempt to regain control. Okay, you're right. Maybe I pushed too hard. Can we just reset and talk about something else? Your music, your business ventures, anything you want to discuss. But Jennifer shook her head firmly. No, Ellen, we can't just reset. You don't get to push someone to their breaking point and then just pretend it didn't happen. That's not how respect works. I do respect you, Ellen insisted, her voice becoming more defensive. I've always respected you. That's why I keep inviting you back to the show. That's why I'm interested in your life. Jennifer's eyes flashed with something that looked like disbelief. You respect me. If you respected me, you would have stopped the first time I said I didn't want to discuss my personal life. If you respected me, you wouldn't have called my reaction overreacting. If you respected me, you would understand that I'm a human being with boundaries. The confrontation was reaching a crescendo that no one in the studio had anticipated. Ellen's usual charm and quick wit had completely abandoned her, leaving her looking vulnerable and uncertain in a way that her audience had rarely seen. I'm sorry if I made you feel disrespected, Ellen said, though her apology sounded hollow and forced. That wasn't my intention at all. Your intention doesn't matter if your impact is harmful, Jennifer shot back. I've been in this business for decades. Ellen, I know the difference between a genuine interview and someone trying to exploit my personal life for ratings. The accusation hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. Ellen's face went from pale to flushed as she processed what Jennifer had just said. Exploit, Jennifer? That's completely unfair. I would never exploit you or anyone else, wouldn't you? Jennifer's voice was calm now, which somehow made it even more cutting. Then explain to me why you kept pushing when I clearly said no. Explain to me why you dismissed my feelings. Explain to me why you think my personal pain is fair game for your show. Ellen opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. For perhaps the first time in her career, she was completely speechless. The woman who had built her reputation on being quick-witted and charming found herself unable to form a coherent response. Jennifer continued, her voice gaining strength. I've been through enough public breakups, enough tabloid speculation, enough invasion of privacy to last several lifetimes. I thought coming on your show would be different. I thought you understood what it meant to be respectful. I do understand, Ellen finally managed to say, but her voice was weak and uncertain. I'm sorry if I crossed a line. I really am. You're sorry if you crossed a line. Jennifer's voice was incredulous. Ellen, there's no if about it. You crossed a line the moment you kept pushing after I said no. You crossed a line when you called my reaction overreacting. You crossed a line when you made this about what you think your audience wants instead of what I'm comfortable with. The studio was so quiet now that the cameras could probably pick up individual heartbeats. Ellen's producers were clearly in panic mode, but there was nothing they could do to stop what was happening. This was live television at its most raw and unfiltered. Ellen made one final attempt to salvage the situation. Jennifer, please. We've known each other for years. We've always had a good relationship. Don't let this one moment define everything. But Jennifer was already reaching for her microphone pack, beginning to remove it with deliberate, measured movements. Ellen, this isn't about one moment. This is about respect, boundaries, and basic human decency. And right now, I don't feel like I'm getting any of those things. The realization that Jennifer was actually preparing to leave seemed to hit Ellen like a physical blow. Ellen's face went from flushed to completely white as she watched Jennifer methodically unhook her microphone pack. The reality of what was happening seemed to hit her all at once, and desperation crept into her voice. Jennifer, wait, please, don't do this. We can figure this out. We can edit this part out. We can start over. We can do whatever you need. But Jennifer continued, removing her microphone with calm, deliberate movements, her actions speaking louder than any words could. Edit it out. Ellen, this isn't about editing. This is about the fact that you think it's acceptable to treat people this way in the first place. The studio audience was now completely captivated by the drama unfolding before them. Some were recording on their phones, others were simply staring in shocked silence. This was the kind of unscripted television moment that would be talked about for years to come. Ellen's voice became increasingly frantic. I made a mistake. Okay, I admit it. I pushed too hard. I didn't listen when you said no. I was wrong. But please, don't leave like this. Don't end it like this. Jennifer placed her microphone pack on the chair she had been sitting in, the small device landing with a soft thud that somehow seemed to echo through the entire studio. Ellen, the way this ends isn't up to me, it's up to you. You had multiple opportunities to respect my boundaries, and you chose not to take them. I'm taking them now, Ellen pleaded, her composed television persona completely shattered. I'm listening now. I'm respecting your boundaries now. Jennifer turned to face Ellen directly, her expression a mixture of disappointment and resolve. It's too late for that, Ellen, you can't unring a bell. You can't take back the disrespect, the dismissal, the way you made me feel small for having boundaries in the first place. The tension in the studio was so thick it was almost suffocating. Ellen's producers were frantically trying to figure out how to handle this unprecedented situation, while the audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether they should be watching or looking away. Ellen made one last desperate attempt. Jennifer, I've built my career on treating people with kindness and respect. This isn't who I am. You know this isn't who I am. Jennifer's response was quiet but devastating. Ellen, this is exactly who you are. This is who you are when someone tells you no and it's inconvenient for your show. This is who you are when someone's comfort matters less than your ratings. This is who you are when the cameras are rolling and you think you can get away with it. The words hit Ellen like physical blows. She opened her mouth to respond, but Jennifer wasn't finished. I've been in this business long enough to know the difference between someone who respects boundaries and someone who just talks about respecting boundaries. Today, you showed me which one you really are. Ellen's eyes were beginning to fill with tears, whether from frustration, embarrassment, or genuine remorse. It was impossible to tell. Jennifer, please, I'm begging you, don't leave it like this. Give me a chance to make it right. You had your chance, Jennifer replied, her voice steady and unwavering. You had multiple chances. Every time I tried to redirect the conversation, every time I expressed discomfort, every time I set a boundary, you had a chance to make it right. And every time, you chose to push harder instead. The studio was so quiet now that the hum of the cameras seemed deafeningly loud. Ellen stood there, looking smaller and more vulnerable than anyone had ever seen her, while Jennifer prepared to make her exit. I want your audience to understand something, Jennifer said, addressing the cameras directly for the first time since the confrontation began. This isn't about being a diva or being difficult. This is about basic respect. When someone tells you they're not comfortable discussing something, you stop. Period. It doesn't matter if you're curious, it doesn't matter if you think it would make good television, it doesn't matter if you think they're overreacting, you stop. Ellen made one final, desperate plea. Jennifer, I understand that now, I really do. Can't we use this as a learning moment? Can't we turn this into something positive? Jennifer's laugh was bitter and tired. A learning moment. Ellen, I'm not here to teach you how to be a decent human being. That's something you should have figured out before you became responsible for interviewing vulnerable people on national television. The accusation hung in the air like a final judgment. Ellen stood there, speechless and deflated, as Jennifer began walking toward the exit of the studio. Her heels clicked against the floor with a rhythm that seemed to count down the seconds until this nightmare would be over. "Jennifer, wait," Ellen called out one last time, her voice breaking slightly. "What do I tell the audience? What do I tell my producers? What do I tell the network?" Jennifer paused at the edge of the stage area, turning back to look at Ellen. "One final time, tell them the truth, Ellen. Tell them that you pushed someone past their breaking point because you thought your show was more important than their comfort. Tell them that you learned the hard way, that not everyone will tolerate being disrespected for the sake of entertainment." With that, Jennifer Lopez walked off the set of the Ellen DeGeneres Show, leaving behind a stunned audience, a shattered host, in a moment that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come. Ellen stood alone on her stage, the weight of what had just happened settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every second of Ellen's humiliation as she tried to process what had just occurred. Her usual quick wit and charm had completely abandoned her, leaving her looking lost and uncertain in front of millions of viewers. As the reality of the situation sank in, Ellen realized that this wasn't just a bad interview or an uncomfortable moment. This was a career-defining disaster that would follow her for the rest of her professional life. The woman who had built her reputation on being kind and approachable had just been exposed as someone who couldn't respect basic boundaries when it mattered most. The studio audience sat in stunned silence, many of them still processing what they had just witnessed. This wasn't the feel-good daytime television they had expected. This was raw, unfiltered human drama that had played out in real time, and there was no going back. So what do you think was the real turning point in this confrontation? Was it when Ellen called Jennifer's reaction overreacting, or was it something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking celebrity stories that you won't believe actually happened.